Welcome to Living and Aging with Pride. As you know, this show is all about fusing information and knowledge and accessibility and resources to the aging population. But I always like to qualify that it's more than just the older people we're trying to reach. We're trying to reach everybody because everybody faces the issue of getting older, and what do we do and how do we do it. I'm going to start off with you, Ed. Ed is the executive director, president of Habitat for Humanity. We know it because our dear old president, Jimmy Carter, did some wonderful things back in the day, and it obviously it still is. But as we face this pandemic, COVID-19, and housing is a big issue, how is that impacting what you do and how your organization is faced with trying to continue what you do, but maybe even increase the possibilities?
One challenge that we've had in the pandemic is the price of materials to build have gone up substantially. Lumber has gone up 180% while we've been in this pandemic. It almost seems illogical that that would happen, but that's making it tougher for us to provide affordable housing. What we're looking at is different methods of building, things where we can save some of those costs. We do have some of our clients are over 65 going into housing. And so we help with that demographic as well. But the pandemic has done a couple things. One is we build with volunteers. The community comes and builds with us, and we haven't been able to use volunteers during this time.
Right.
So that's complicated things and slowed things down for us.
Are you getting any support or assistance from the governmental agencies, whether it be state or local, with respect to funding or resources or land accessibility, or even sometimes, I don't know if you're dealing with condemned housing where you have to go in and renovate it, but are you getting any assistance from the system to help you? Because what you do is needed now even more so.
Yes, Salt Lake County is one of our biggest partners. And Habitat doesn't just build affordable housing, new affordable housing. We also do critical repairs for low-income households. And so we'll go in and make those repairs, especially if it's threatening the health and safety of the families living in there. And we look for asthma cases. We look for houses that are making people sick. And we try to go in there and make it a green, healthy home.
Right.
The Green Healthy Home Initiative has been around for a number of years. We've invested about $2.2 million in Salt Lake County just in fixing homes in low-income households.
Right.
And so almost all of our repair program is funded through a HUD program called HOME. And that comes to us through Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County also helps to some degree with our affordable housing that we're building currently out in Kearns.
Very interesting. Liz, let me bring you into the equation, and I want to say congratulations, first year anniversary. You're now old school at the YWCA. You can forget about that leisure life now. The work begins for real. I'm only kidding you, but what are you faced with as the CEO of the YWCA? What kinds of things are you dealing with? And how has this pandemic, this COVID, brought upon different kind of front for you to have to deal with besides what you've already been dealing with?
Well, YWCA Utah is a pretty complicated organization. So we have been, in fact, we celebrate 115 years in Utah this May. And we have been many things to the community, and we've sort of evolved as the needs of women in the community have changed. And in the 70s, that looked like a boarding house that then evolved into the first domestic violence shelter in the state. And currently, we are the largest and most comprehensive provider of domestic violence services. And what that looks like is a campus in Central City that includes the largest emergency shelter for women and children, as well as walk-in services through the Salt Lake Area Family Justice Center for people in our community who are experiencing family violence or have experienced family violence or trauma. We also have transitional and affordable housing on our campus for women and children, and an early education center from 6 weeks to all-day kindergarten. And we have policy, race equity, and young women's empowerment programming. So all of those programs remained fully operational, but had to shift in different ways. The children's services and the daycare and early education services had different restrictions based on licensing. And then of course, people often were afraid to send their children, and that impacted our revenue. And then our emergency shelter is essentially a homeless resource center. And so all of the challenges that our partner agencies, both the shelters and homeless resource centers faced, we faced, where people were afraid, we think, but we don't really know. We've seen an increase in law enforcement reporting of domestic violence incidences, and we've also seen an increase in our crisis line, but we're always full. So we haven't necessarily seen an increase in people who we are housing. But we had a decrease in our ability to do so because we couldn't double up single women. We can triple them up, so we put them in their own rooms. There was definitely a lot of fears with our residents when they were exposed or testing or positive. They also, you're living in a shelter and then you have children who can't go to school because it's online school, but you don't have access to computers. Right. I mean, there are so many challenges day to day. It's really hard to sum it all up. We've been able to remain operational much of the same way as a lot of community partners, and that is by partnering with businesses, partnering with our community partners and the local and state and federal COVID support opportunities for grants and different things that were made available, including the PPP.
Right.
But it has been a year of challenges, and I will just end with saying that, as many people have noted, I think, and are starting to know, as it seems like we see the light at the end of the tunnel, on the other side of all of those challenges has been all of this sort of creative and innovative thinking. And there's been a real shift, I think, a natural shift with me in the organization, but also with a year of challenges in looking at the way that we do things and how we hold ourselves accountable to our mission, particularly our mission to eliminate racism. And so it feels like we have been able to leverage what we could of a crisis.
Well, I get a sense that the new things that you're encountering and dealing with, or old things that's been happening but have not necessarily been revealed as a public issue as it has now, but you're tasked to help reallocate internal resources to individuals who come into your purview here is a whole nother task. Now you're having to couple that with what's going on in the community, and how do you get those individuals back into the system again, and how does the system recognize that they have this kind of problem, now they got this kind of problem altogether, and you have to work. I wanted to ask this question and bring Ed into this. Is there any relationship to volunteering with, say, programs like Habitat for Humanities, where you give training, where you get them acclimated into getting back to working and participating with sound-minded individuals? Do either one of you have a sense of that issue happening, or has it happened? Ed?
Sorry, I was muting, didn't want to make a noise over Liz's conversation.
Okay.
So we have people that come out and volunteer on our construction site.
Right.
And currently we're building some of the most energy efficient, affordable housing in America today. And the way we're building these homes is very different. And we're finding people coming out and learning those skills and being kind of on the front end of that kind of technology.
Right.
And so that offers them an opportunity to get even a better job out in the construction workforce where they're using the materials that we use. We've also had people with disabilities and such come in and work in our Restore. Our Restore is a home improvement thrift store located at 13 South and 5th West. And they learn skills that we've seen them take to Lowe's and Home Depot and box stores, that they learn those skills here and they go there for employment afterwards. These, I've been asking for funding for this, but I haven't been able to put that together yet, James. What we'd really like to see is something where possibly someone that is homeless could be paid a wage while they're here learning some of these skills, and then to employment elsewhere, because we can't take on labor in that situation. And so put out there a number of times to see if in fact we could get funding to do that type of training, the very training that you're talking about.
Liz, you want to add to that?
So we don't have any sort of back to work kind of programming opportunities necessarily for, as an organization, that we provide for our residents and for our community members who are seeking resources. The Salt Lake Area Family Justice Center is a center that co-locates social services. And so we do have someone from Workforce Services who can be here. We do have some sort of like interviewing and resume kind of support through case managers and often through trainings for our residents. But we take advantage of volunteers like Habitat for Humanities, and that has been greatly impacted by COVID. But that helps, you know, just having bodies in some of our programs, like our children's programs, adds to ratios. So it just helps with capacity and our ability to take time out with specific children who need it while other kids can continue to play. It also helps us maintain our 6 buildings, you know, our campus here. And so we've had to face not having volunteers in it. And that's been a new challenge that we also are hoping to see. It feels like we're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel and keeping our fingers crossed, because it just has added an additional strain on the everyday work that we do.
Well, I know this pandemic has caused a whole lot of people to have to stay in or separate themselves from their normal existence. But I'm talking with a number of the city leadership about let's start using seniors and getting seniors into more of a voluntary capacity, not only for their own self-benefit, but also in support of a variety of different programs. Because I'm finding that we need to really integrate all of these different unique programs together. You might only get one person out of there, but that's one person you didn't have, and that one person could lend itself to be a benefactor. I would ask you, Liz, if you had a wish list, what would be number 1 on that wish list?
Well, for YWCA, I mean, I have a lot of wish lists for different areas, but for
I know you want the Jaguar and the trip to Belize for 6 weeks, but let's get beside that. Yeah.
Okay, well, for YWCA, it would be sustainable funding for more staff. We need more infrastructure, essentially. And for the community, it would be, I think this really intersects with probably Ed's work. It would be access to affordable housing, for long-term affordable housing. Obviously, as an emergency shelter, we're moving people on often to our own transitional housing. I mean, it is the largest challenge we face in terms of moving people to a place where they can really build lives of safety and security and feel empowered. I mean, housing is such a major challenge before us. And ensuring that our own housing opportunities here remain financially sustainable is also a challenge. And so that would be my number 1 community and number 1 organizational.
Great. Ed, what's your best wish?
So James, when we do a community meeting for new candidates to come in and get a Habitat home,
Right.
Habitat Homes, by the way, they pay back over 30 years, but it has no interest. And so it's a very low house payment.
Right.
But we'll take 80 applications for 5 positions. My wish list would be that we could fulfill all the applications that come to us. And so I'm going to make a moonshot on that right away. I would love to see our capacity much higher than it is right now, and building faster and more. This is a very difficult problem. There are other answers to affordable housing beyond habitat. Accessory dwelling units. There are a number of things that we can be doing to fulfill some of the affordable housing that needs to happen in this state. And there are many ideas out there. We need to stop looking in the same shoebox for the answer, because I don't think it's no longer there. I think that what we really need to do is look outside that box and look at different ideas like accessory dwelling units and such to see if we can bring affordable housing capacity nearer to where it needs to be.
Well, I can share this with you. We are in pre-development with talking with developers, with various cities and counties about certain land opportunities. We want to build communities. We really want to take advantage of the opportunity to look at the, what do you call it? It's lost my mind at this moment, but we want to find ways to building projects where they may not have been, which is a policy decision. And that's the biggest hurdle from what I'm understanding in making it possible to build better living accommodations for a variety of people. And that variety of people needs to be placed in amongst all other people so that we're not distinctively making these communities that are low income housing or underserved communities. If we sprinkle some economic development within those communities begin to sustain themselves and build a foundation where they're not underserved and they're economically viable. And that's what we're going to have to start looking at and doing. I think that'll make the difference. So we are, as a media platform, looking to create these partners. And when you go look at our website, it's now just about finished. You will see we've got a very broad base of partners and individuals coming on board, where we're going to be a unique television platform where we seek to develop solutions and implement those solutions, and pushing the policymakers to think outside of their standard typical box. The other thing that we're working on doing is making sure that our voters, and it happens to be that seniors are becoming the largest voting bloc in the country, that they are educated. I find the problem that exists amongst our citizens is that they are voting for people they like, not voting for people who has an insight or an understanding of what needs to happen. I get that, but we now have to get people in that room who has a definite understanding of what we need in our community. There's no reason on this planet that the two of you, your organizations, are continually looking for the same money, having a 50-year and 100-year track record of making a difference in the community. It ought to be a given. You know, we want to know, why aren't we sustaining these organizations so that their time is not spent trying to find the buck, that they're trying to spend their time making the difference in the lives of the people in the community. So I really commend both of you. Liz, you know, I want you on my board. I'm going to send my group over there. They're going to be waving banners out in front of the YWCA, and you're going to have a protest that you never would believe before, trying to get you on this board. But if there's something you guys can add as we close, please let me know, because I may not ask the right questions. I'm talking from how I feel about something, and that's who I am. But you have something you want to say, something we ought to be doing, please share it with us. Liz?
Well, that's a big ask. What I would say is that there are the services that we provide are community services, and it really does take a community to provide them. And I think that there are as many opportunities for partnerships and creative partnerships as there probably are partners. There are probably more opportunities than there are partners. So if anyone is really interested in how we might partner, I think that there is a lot of room for exploration. And I really liked what Ed had said about thinking outside the box, because I think that that's one of those things that we leveraged from this past year, is that we had to be really creative. We did things in ways that we had never done before. And that kind of creative, imaginative thinking is a state of mind that we currently are in as an organization. And I hope to continue to cultivate and keep us here, even as we move into just a more stable year. Who knows, this year might be stable, but more stable times, hopefully, that we continue to be really creative, because what I know to be true is what Ed has said, that everything that we've done hasn't been working. So there really is no loss in trying to think about how do we do things differently, because what we're doing right now in terms of affordable housing or homelessness isn't working.
Absolutely.
So to be able to partner and take some strategic and calculated risks in serving our community in different ways is really where we're at as an organization. So we welcome partnerships. I welcome partnerships. And I'm excited to continue to work with you as well, James, and now to meet you, Ed.
Back at you. Thank you very much.
James,
Yes, Ed.
James, I'll go ahead and go next. I want to build on what Liz said as well. We called this last year the year of the pivot.
Okay.
When we went into this pandemic, we had to close our store for a period of time. And if you ever want something that sucks cash out of your organization, shut down something like your store that provides proceeds into it. Our trucks that we use to pick up donations sat idle. And we became aware the state was having trouble moving food around to different pantries. We spent probably 4 months using our box trucks to feed over 500 people a day. To give you perspective, that is not our mission. That's not what we do. We were involved in that, and if you'll remember, we had an earthquake.
Right.
47 mobile homes out in West Valley City went to the ground in that earthquake. Habitat for Humanity led the team that put them all back up on earthquake-resistant piers in 3 weeks. These families, by the way, were all homeless at the time. They were kicked out of their trailers. They couldn't go back into them. When the earthquake hit, we also provided building materials for free to people that showed up to the store and needed those materials. And so, James, it was the year of the pivot, quite frankly. I think the nonprofits really shouldered a lot of that responsibility during that time. And it's funny how people that are in trouble, they see nonprofits as a safe harbor. We've had on a couple of occasions, women that are being troubled with domestic violence come into our store. The boyfriend's after them or the husband's after them. And Liz, we've drove them over to you. And they came in our store because it was a safe harbor. And so the nonprofits are an amazing backbone to our community on so many levels. And I think that it's important that the community knows that and knows that we'll pivot to do what's right for the community when it needs to be done. And so, you know, the other thing is, and shifting gears here is our aging demographic. James, I would say I would say that as a community, we're not looking at this with the seriousness that it needs to be looked at.
Absolutely.
We have a aging demographic that's moving quickly to become a major part of our population. And we need to come forward with solutions for this aging population. What are we going to do? We hate to see someone that has saved money all their lives, and in the last year of their life, they spend all the way down to zero during that time.
Absolutely.
So we figure out how to have them age in place. That could be a critical repair. It could be them building an ADU on their very lot and they move into the ADU and they rent the big house. There are a number of solutions here, but what we really do is gather with the right models and come up with those solutions. And just as important, we need the cities and municipalities to work towards those solutions. It might mean decreasing lot lines. It could be a number of things that they can help us with. And so I appreciate the chance that you've given me today to come on here with you and talk about some of these issues.
Well, we're going to do it on a regular basis, and I would hope that you and Liz connect. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with an idea only if you don't use it, and so we have to come up with new ideas. And because you guys are already innovative in your thinking and how you deal with people and deal with things, I think you're the source that will help make this a better place. And I commend you, and I'm so proud to have an opportunity to chat with you. And remember, I know nothing. You're teaching me everything so I can learn how better to put it in front of people. 10,000 people a day turn 65 every day. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people who have committed themselves to this country, to this community over a period of time. And there's no reason on this planet we should be neglecting them or not trying to find out how to facilitate helping their lives be better and better. And the two of you are great contribution to this community. Thank you for being a guest on Living and Aging with Pride. You made my day great. God bless you. And I wish you all the continued success on the planet. Thank you very much. Until next time, I'll call you next week. Liz, I'll be on it. I got my protesters outside. Don't start nothing with me, Liz. God bless you both. Have a great day.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much.